All right, guys, I'm just getting in. Who's in here? We got one. All right, I got four and counting. All right, Nintendo 504, what's up, buddy? AMD, welcome back. David Brown, my friend, good to have you in the house. Ting for the win. Nice, David, right away, man. Just get that out of the way. Connor, what's happening, buddy? We'll just go ahead and give the live stream a few minutes for people to just kind of pile in here. Oh, early, we're losing you? Busy guy, David. I understand. Well, Connor, I'm sorry you missed last week's live stream. The timing got thrown off completely, actually. Um, so I was supposed to do it in the afternoon. I ended up having to do it in the evening because of some issues or whatever. But this week we're back to our normal time, so we got you and everything as well. Happy Friday, y'alls. Mark, welcome, my friend. I'm excellent. How are you? No, I haven't been able to watch anything yet, Edward. I'm gonna get to it this weekend though. I got some time set aside to catch up on some shows and check out some new stuff. But I'll definitely check it out this week for sure. We got 9 in the house. Oh, some ground rules for the live stream. Number one, if you're in the live stream, you have to say hello, and I guess that we'll just make that the ground rules for now. You know what, Connor? The last couple live streams have gone over 2 hours, 2 hours and a couple minutes. So, pop in as soon as you're all done, and we'll be here. I'm probably going to be going until about 4 o'clock. Things are usually pretty active in here, so yeah, come on back as soon as you're ready. All right, Edward, Alex, let's just go ahead and get right into it, huh? Some merger stuff. The only thing that's happening in terms of the merger right now is, well, as it's going through its paces, there's supposed to be some type of a waiver that's getting thrown around for some signatures. Um, I didn't hear anything this week about it, but last week we knew of that, so that's pretty much all that's there. There's a little bit of action from the old Boost founder who's been talking about the merger, but nothing really, directly that implicates the merger, I guess. And sorry if you guys see me popping back and forth, viewing the camera and then like viewing my monitor because that's where I get, all of the questions and comments and stuff. So it'll just look weird that I'm going back and forth, but that's what I'm doing. Roland, welcome, my friend. Good to have you. This is our third live stream, I think. Yeah, I feel like this is the third. First one went great. Second one, timing was off. This one, we're back here. So, uh, yeah, we're 3 live streams in strong, and we've done a few podcasts now, and the weekly updates continue strong. So, it's good to have you, Roland. Welcome to the channel, my friend. All right, Connor, we'll see you, buddy. Mark, why are you at work, man? It's Friday. Clock out. Ah, can wait till Monday. All right, so Ellie's in the house. All right, Edward. Special shout out to Ellie. She's out there watching, participating in the chat today. Welcome, Ellie. Hope you had a good week, and hopefully your dad, he took you to the zoo or something. I don't know. Nice, David. I like it. I like the terminology. I'm all about them dividends. I guess Ellie's become, a friend of the show, so the live stream show. Mark, if you're already checked out, man, you got to get out of there. No use in staying. No, they ain't paying you. Get out. It's good to be a company, man. Don't get me wrong, but at some point, man, you just gotta step away. So, ground rule number one for the Sneed Mobile Tech live streams is as soon as you pop in, you have to say hello. Uh, we'll acknowledge you. I'll give you a special shout out here, and then if you got anything else you want to add in there, go ahead. I actually just got out of work myself, so most of you guys know from the last couple live streams a lot of ask me anything type questions, but so I'm a school teacher during the school year. But outside of that, I'm also an iPhone repair specialist. I also work at my family's bakery in the summer and on weekends. So I also have some part-time jobs, and that's why I have to do the live stream now during this window because as soon as my wife gets home from work and the baby's here, my daughter's just a little bit over 2 years old. It gets crazy loud. There's no way I could do a live stream. Not with a 2-year old running around this place. No way. I don't know if you guys are keeping tabs. The Steam Mobile Tech channel now has like 970 subscribers. We're pushing for 1,000. We're close. Uh, According to my calculations, we should hit 1,000 probably before the end of July. Yeah, I need a studio, man. You ain't lying. Get a studio, get a backdrop, get the lighting right, get the audio right, for sure. I need it. If I'm gonna do this right, that's the way it has to be. All right, so just to throw around some topics that were covered this week, and this will be a combination of the YouTube channel content and also I'll throw in some of the Patreon stuff that I covered this week. So the most recent video was the State of the Networks video, which I thought I did a pretty good job of covering, all things related to networks and what the carriers are doing with pricing lately. Also the profitability end, which, obviously they kind of go hand in hand. And then the performance that we got from the Open Signal and Ookla reports. So that was one of the topics we had. Yeah, Edward, I just want to, I kind of limped into the channel. Like in the early humble beginnings, I was just kind of making the videos, just being informative, just kind of reporting. And now I just wanted to try to expand, make the videos a little bit more developed, more interactive, provide a thorough script, but then also kind of show some things that people could get behind. Yeah, I'm pretty busy guy, Mark. But I like it that way. If when people aren't busy, they're not productive. So, as long as you can handle it, I believe in staying busy and always trying to be busy. But whatever you can handle, if you can only handle so much, then that's it. But yeah, busy is good. Sitting around doing nothing sucks. Uh, some other content from this week's videos. We had the T-Mobile International plan and feature pricing. We had some changes there. I'm not really sure how many people that affects, but maybe we'll bring it up today. Also, this is more towards the beginning or the end of last week and beginning of this week. Sprint plan changes, military discount, and then from like the Patreon side, the AT&T Time Warner acquisition, the DOJ appeal, quarter two postpaid, prepaid numbers, total revenue. So AT&T news there, and then another bit from Patreon was the 5G news that I put in there, and it was the FCC spectrum auctions and meetings, hardware contracts, stuff like that. So I think what we'll do is we'll use those as our guides for today's live stream, and just all the general stuff that you guys normally ask, or topics that you just want to kind of throw out there. So we'll go ahead and get going here. All right, I'm going to catch up in the chat, so give me a second. All right, David. T-Mobile wins again. As it relates to numbers, like postpaid numbers and stuff like that. Yeah, their quarters are always strong. They do really well. I think about T-Mobile and how much they've accelerated their growth. This used to be like a super, super small company, and they've added a bunch of subs, and then the performance started to catch up too. Yeah, yeah, like you said, the speed. Uh, they've been pretty fast for a while now, though. We're gonna see if they can sustain that as soon as they start getting really high, huge jumps in subscriber counts. Like let's say, in the next few years they go from 75 million customers to like 105 million. Something crazy. Let's just throw it out there. They're gonna have to support those people, so we'll see if they can keep up. And of course, you got to keep in mind they have quite a bit on the prepaid side. They do Metro. They've got some MVNOs and stuff like that. 200 million. Why not, man? If you get Sprint, right, and then you throw in what they have, I mean, if you combine Sprint and T-Mobile's customers, what do you got? About 55, 60 million from Sprint, right? I forget what the last number actually was for Sprint. I know T-Mobile's around 75 million. So yeah, that puts them probably knocking on the footsteps of like AT&T territory, within about 10 or 15 million, probably 20 million. Yeah, you're right, David. Sometimes busy and not necessarily productive. Sometimes you run yourself thin and then you're not really doing much other than just running yourself out and draining yourself and not being as good as you could be if you just committed to a couple things. I've definitely been there before as well. All right, Edward, you think Sprint and T-Mobile are increasing prices just to prove to the FCC that prices will continue to rise if there's no merger? Can't say that I believe that statement, only because they're ramping up spending towards 5G investments, so you're going to need the money to do it. And with all the promotions that were going on for the last couple of years, eventually it was going to catch up. You need money to operate. You need money to, make the network run better. Every market is going to continue to grow. Connectivity devices need more and more spectrum. They're taxing their networks more, and apps are getting more involved, and they're really straining networks. So I mean, no, I don't think they're just doing it to prove a point to the FCC. I think they're doing it because they have to. Mark Garcia, sometimes these companies get complacent, particularly Verizon. They get complacent as it appears to us, the consumer, because we don't hear anything, we don't see what's going on. But actually, Verizon, they actually do quite a bit behind closed doors. They just don't always announce it and talk about it. Like, I'll give you the example. Probably the biggest, like, I guess the antithesis of Verizon is T-Mobile. So they're probably like total opposites, right? Polar opposites. Verizon does everything very quietly. Verizon does everything kind of behind the scenes. T-Mobile does something and they put it on blast. They start tweeting it. They start, putting it on the website. They start bragging about it, making commercials. They're very, very different. So, you know, just because we don't hear about what Verizon's doing doesn't mean they're not doing anything necessarily. They're always upgrading, the network, updating sites, adding sites, installing small cells. We just don't hear a peep out of them because they don't. It's not part of their business model. When there's something revolutionary, you will hear Verizon talk about it. But take T-Mobile for instance. They just anything they do, they want to put it out there to show that they're doing it, and just different approach, I guess. All right, Edward, hold on a second, man. I think you're jumping the gun a little bit on T-Mobile. So you're saying that T-Mobile pulled a Verizon move by doing a $5 data pass? If Verizon's doing it and T-Mobile's goal is to keep up with total revenue, to keep up with the big players, then you can't really say they're pulling a Verizon move. They're responding to the market. It's now you're right. It's very man. How am I gonna say this? It's very unlike the uncarrier to add something like that. But I think you're gonna see that probably within the next 5 to 10 years, the uncarrier branding of T-Mobile is gonna start to really dissipate. There's only so long you're gonna keep up with like all these giveaways and stuff like that. Eventually, that stuff becomes inconsequential, and it's just not meaningful in the total, in like the large scale outlook of the company. The bottom line for T-Mobile is they just have to make their network uh, continue to improve the network performance, make it, have, a greater amount of coverage, make people believe in switching to them. So, increasing their market share, and that's really what it's about. Verizon wins because Verizon has the network. It's not how well they treat their customers. It's how well their product is, or how good their product is. Verizon equals Go 90. David, come on, man. You gotta let Go 90 go. Go 90's done, man. It's over. It's dead. We gotta like just kind of bury it, put it in its casket. It's over. Go 90 is, it's over. It really was a poor effort. I don't think they ever really did it, the right way. I think it was a little bit disorganized, what they wanted to do, but it did offer some good content. I used to watch soccer matches all the time. For those out there, football. I used to watch all of those matches on Go 90. It was great. A lot of matches I wouldn't have been able to see otherwise. The shows I didn't watch, the movies I didn't watch, stuff like that. What's up, Landon? How you doing, buddy? Landon says T-Mobile needs more capacity. Slow internet in my area, even before 50 gigabytes. All right, so that's usually not the case. I don't see a lot of people struggling with T-Mobile speed. I hear probably, most people complaining about T-Mobile coverage being very spotty in certain parts, rural areas. And of course, all of that is being addressed currently. The 600 megahertz rollout is, it's accelerated. They're doing it as fast and efficiently as possible. They're doing a good job with it. But in terms of speed, man, that sucks, Landon. It's usually not the case for most people. But keep in mind, Landon, I'm pretty sure the last time I checked with you, you weren't even on mainland U.S. I think you're in Puerto Rico, weren't you? You know what, Mark? I've been seeing a lot of network upgrades too. I've been seeing sites off of freeways, and I think what they're doing is they're doing two things. I think they're adjusting and the like directional arrangement of antennas, and I also think they're upgrading antennas. I don't know if they're adding, or if they're just repositioning, or if they're doing both. I'm not really sure because I'm driving on the freeway. I can't really stop and look or whatever. But I've been noticing it too. Yeah, me too, Mark. I watched all of those matches, hustling home. See, I got DirecTV now, so I can take those matches with me. I watch it on my phone, and I watched pretty much at least one half of every match this year in the World Cup. And actually, the one thing I like better than the World Cup is actually it's actually the EuroLeague championships. I love those matches. Those are great. I mean, European competition is so high level. Not that France and Croatia wasn't high level; it was incredible. But every match is like that in the Euro Cup. Edward, they had it for free, and even grandfather people like me and so. What were you speaking of there, Edward? I'm just catching up. I think I missed the first part. Dang, Landon, you're buffering? What's the resolution on it? Like what's being streamed right now? What are you guys getting while you're streaming right now? What's the resolution? I mean, I know it's just little old me. I don't have to have any beautification on 1080p or Quad HD. I'm not even really sure how it's streaming at what resolution. I mean, heck, I think at this point, 480p or whatever would be fine. So, Landon, I'm guessing you're probably not near the capital, San Juan, right? Uh, must be a little bit further out. Not so much for coverage there. Oh, they used to have unlimited data for Mexico and Canada, and 3G for other countries with 25 international. Yeah, that, obviously for people that travel, do a little bit of movement, that comes through big time. Especially Canada. I know I used to have a lot of friends that used to go to Windsor. It's just a few hours drive here from Cleveland, Ohio. All right, Roland, you're in the HD crowd, watching it at 720p. All right, good to see it's at least giving you that. San Lorenzo. AMD, I feel like, if we're gonna ask the question about the merger, like, am I for it or against it? If we're gonna ask every week, I mean, what's happened this week that's changed anything? Not really. Uh, I really would have liked to have seen Sprint do this a different way, but it looks to me like they're just trying to get out of their debt. They're trying to create this conglomerate that, you know, removes some of the financial, issues that they're having, kind of diffuse some of that through T-Mobile and actually become a viable entity. So I can't be mad at them for trying to improve their position, but I'm mad that they fell so far that they've had to resort to this as their only and probably their last option. Mark Garcia said the cup did not go as everyone figured, but great nonetheless. Actually, Mark, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I'm going to toot my own horn. I predicted France would win the World Cup. Hopefully, one of my students, I think it was one of my students in my biology class, Alex. We had this conversation. He asked me, who I thought was going to win the World Cup, and I did say France. So, just bragging rights, I guess. I mean, they're just so deep. Every position has a star, and every position has a secondary star. So they just they don't skip a beat. Their subs are super. Their starters are world class players, and Mbappe just, wow, what a great young player he is. AMD says T-Mobile has 600 megahertz. They could take down AT&T. No. AT&T has their hands in so many different things. And their network is leaps and bounds ahead of T-Mobile for now. So, not even close. The 600 megahertz is going to help close some coverage gaps for sure, but it's going to be tough. They got a lot of ground to make up. You know what, Landon? That kind of sucks, man. So you're going to spend most of your time, obviously, in your hometown, kind of going here and there, and of course being at home, and then coverage is great outside of there. That's just so unfortunate. Man, I'm actually learning to appreciate prepaid carriers more and more now than I ever have. I think about how crucial and important they are to the consumers. Prepaid options are great, especially when we're talking single lines. Like if you get a single line unlimited with a postpaid carrier, you could pay anywhere between like 75 and $110, right? Depending if it's Verizon or T-Mobile or whatever else. But like prepaid, like 40 to $60 gets you an amazing unlimited deal that, sure, it has its restrictions. I mean, they all do, but you're getting pretty much everything you need at a, fraction of the price, sometimes half. Sometimes 40% less. It's great. I've learned to appreciate prepaid carriers more now than ever since I started the channel. All right, David, we'll see you, brother. Have a good one. Check in the next one, man. Edward Alex says, have you heard about AT&T restricting customers who roam domestically? They still do that? The companies still restrict for roaming within the US? I feel like that was something like in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like you would travel outside of like your home region, like your home area, and then you would get charged like long distance fees and roaming fees, and like you'd come home to a bill that'd be like $350 when your bill's supposed to be like 45. uh, that's horrible. Are they really doing that, or are you just hearing about this like a rumor? AMD says, would it be a good idea if Verizon bought AT&T? Uh, let's be clear. AT&T just bought Time Warner for $85 billion. How would Verizon be buying AT&T? I mean, how's that gonna happen? Yeah, AMD, that's a pretty good deal. $60, 20 gig hotspot data, 1080p video. That's fantastic. The only downside to it is if your area doesn't have good Sprint coverage, obviously Boost coverage is not going to be any better. You know, Mark, I'm a huge German football fan. My favorite team nationally, of all the leagues, is Bayern Munich. FC Bayern, they're the best, man. And a lot of those same players make it onto the German national team. I mean, Tony Kroos's goal. I don't even remember who it was against. Was it against Croatia? I forget. It was an amazing goal. It's just sad to see Germany fall like that. But they weren't playing good. They weren't playing a good brand of football, actually. They just didn't seem that effective. All right, Roland, you're on AT&T. Got the unlimited plus plan, 3 lines, $180. So you're looking at an average of about $55, $60 a month for each line. Should I switch to T-Mobile? I mean, how much money would it save you? And in the money difference, is T-Mobile's coverage as good or close to as good as AT&T's in your area? I think you'd have to kind of check. But if it saved you $30, $40 a month, for sure, definitely consider it. I feel like a lot of times T-Mobile's service, especially their data, is a lot faster and less congested than the network of the AT&T offers in certain cities. So it's something I think you'd have to check and see if it would work out for you. Landon, your dad's on that really expensive unlimited plan. 90 a month. Banger. Yeah, those agreements, Edward, that T-Mobile pays to Verizon, without it, T-Mobile's an incomplete network. They really need that type of support in their network, at least for now. Once they cover up those areas with their own spectrum, they won't have to have those types of roaming agreements. So, I mean, I'd say by 2020, a lot of what T-Mobile's using now as their fallback, a lot of that is going to kind of go away. They won't really have to need that so much. Yeah, it's true, AMD. T-Mobile does rely completely on other towers and networks. They don't. I mean, which U.S. carriers have true coverage in Canada and Mexico? I mean, AT&T's got some in Mexico, I believe. I think Verizon's got like a very small slice of coverage, like near like Niagara Falls, Windsor, stuff like that. They don't have, much for coverage. I mean, you can't build there. It's just not their territory. Ooh, Edward, when you go to Iowa, T-Mobile limits my data to 200 megabits. Then I get 3G speeds. Have you called and asked them about that restriction? I find that kind of strange. Also, keep in mind, they've acquired iWireless, a regional carrier in Iowa. You would think that that integration would be providing support to you already. I know that I just did a video on it like within the last 2 weeks, so I'm surprised to see that. When was the last time you were out there in Iowa, Edward? Yeah, T-Mobile in certain markets is really, really good. Even if you're on the MVNO, like say you're on Metro PCS or any of those other prepaid carriers, they do pretty well when supporting their network. I always tell people if T-Mobile's working where you're at, it's a great option. If Sprint's working where you're at, it's a great option. The only issue is some people live in places where AT&T and Verizon may be the only options, and of course they're more expensive and you're paying for their network investment. AMD disagrees with me, says T-Mobile isn't incomplete. They have a nationwide coverage. They cover big cities and outer suburbs and some towns. Only 25% of America live in rural areas and small towns. Now, all that's true. Um, but the reason I say I guess maybe I shouldn't say they're incomplete. They rely heavily on roaming. I mean, I know that for a fact. Until they got a lot of those roaming deals done, I mean, T-Mobile is getting you like zero signals for, extended stretches of the U.S. So maybe I shouldn't say incomplete. Maybe I should say their native network is incomplete. But overall, I mean, yeah, the roaming and stuff, it gets them covered. Yeah, I remember that deal with AT&T. Yeah, that was actually a big deal for them. So, and actually, this is why a lot of cricket coverage is still pretty good. People don't realize that that same agreement that affects AT&T customers also supports cricket. So when people are asking about prepaid carriers and they have AT&T and T and they're thinking about switching to cricket, if you don't need the speed of AT&T, which by the way in some markets is not that great, but if you can live with, a slightly slowed down version of AT&T so you still get the coverage, then cricket's a good way to go. You save a lot of money actually. And their family like multi-line plans are really really attractive. All right, should T-Mobile go up to Canada and build towers and give Bell and Rogers a run for their money? Nope, they should not. Uh, Obviously, it's much easier to stay domestic, taking care of like your own backyard. Bell and Rogers probably would do everything in their power to keep T-Mobile out. T-Mobile's disruptive. They don't want disruptors, making their way into their market. So should they? I mean, or can they? I just think they can't. Chinese smartphone manufacturers, they make some really, really good hardware. Designs are great. Their version of Android can be questionable. They make it kind of like iOS. But when it comes to the hardware, camera performance, they're really, really good. And they sell them at bargain prices. You can get a high performing smartphone, a Chinese manufactured one, say like a Huawei or a Xiaomi or, like the Redmi series and stuff like that. Problem is it's difficult for Chinese smartphone manufacturers to do well here because of the politics of it. It's difficult. Connor, welcome back, buddy. See, you made it back. You weren't lying. You came like exactly 30 minutes later. I'm looking at the stopwatch there. You were gone 30 minutes and you're right back. Steve, what's up, buddy? Do all the carriers have LTE data roaming agreements now? For the most part. Um, I mean, I guess depending on the carrier, their agreements are a little bit different. AT&T, uh, I believe AT&T probably has the best balance of agreements. So they provide coverage to carriers, and they also use carriers for certain coverages in certain places, and that's just so it prevents them from having to spend big in certain areas to provide like macro sites and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, they all pretty much have the different LT roaming agreements. Mark Garcia, every time I watch you drink water on your live stream, I get thirsty. Actually, today is not water. It's something else. But But I'm not going to say what it is because they ain't paying me. So I'm not going to give them that shine. Something different. But I'm not going to say. Unless they're going to cut me a check, I'm not going to tell you what's in that cup. Dank Hank, what's up, man? Dank Hank, so you've checked in to Livestream 1 and Livestream 3, but I didn't see you on Livestream 2. So, shame on you. Connor says, I want to try AT&T. Connor, let me tell you what you're going to get with AT&T. I don't know what carrier you have right now. I forgot. But what you get with AT&T is you get good coverage. It's pretty much going to work wherever you're going, wherever you live. The network overall is pretty strong. It can be a little bit pricey, and at some times I feel like AT&T's network can be bogged down because of congestion. But that's only in places where a lot of people have AT&T. So I'd say it's worth a shot as long as you don't mind paying the premium price to get the premium coverage. Their speeds are usually good. In Cleveland, the speeds are not bad. The upload is great. Like, I don't know if you guys know it, but when I upload my videos to YouTube, I use my AT&T service for that. Uploads here are awesome. In fact, the upload speeds from my AT&T sim beat the upload speeds from, like, when I used to have Cox Cable home internet. So, yeah, that's kind of what you're getting, I think, when you switch to AT&T. Berkey from Canada, welcome, my friend. Good to have you in. You know what, Edward? You said if you're gonna go to AT&T, just go Cricket. Yeah, if you don't need the bandwidth, obviously, if speeds aren't a necessity, like they're secondary, then yeah, definitely go with Cricket. You could save the money. Of course, if you got multiple lines, you could save even more. Bundling lines together saves quite a bit. But do keep in mind, Edward, when you go to Cricket, you're reducing speeds. You're not getting all the full feature sets that you get with AT&T. Yeah, Steve, that's true. The problem at that time is because LTE was still, it wasn't as fully deployed yet. So I think they viewed it as like, okay, well, our LTE is more developed. We're gonna kind of like use that to our advantage, force people to come join us, and not provide, available service to others, which is kind of the wrong way to do it. But that's kind of how things are here in the U.S. It's a capitalistic market approach, but that's how it was. It's a lot different now, though. I mean, we're talking what, 2010-ish, 2011, 12, kind of like the early stages of 4G LTE. Mark says 110 in Phoenix. Boy, 110? My goodness. 110 degrees. Look, it was like 95 degrees in Cleveland for like 2 weeks straight, and I was dying. 110? Oh, I would move. Now 110 in the middle of January in Cleveland sounds fantastic, but right now here in Cleveland, Ohio, we're at about I think it's like 84 degrees today. It's actually not bad. The sun's not really out. It's not too bright today, so it's not too bad. But we've had some hot days, 90, 95. Can't compete with 110. Holy crap. Connor says, want to try Cricket. I know they are slow, but talking text and YouTube. Yeah. It would serve you well. Cricket, and the thing about YouTube is you can adjust your resolution usage with YouTube, especially like, I know Androids, you could choose the resolution. So yeah, Hank, it can be humid here. The lake gives us quite a bit of humidity. It kind of sucks when it's hot, but it's nice having the lake. I mean, especially for people that jet ski, especially for people that swim there and visit the beaches and stuff. The lake has its perks. AMD says, if I was the CEO of Sprint, what would you do? I don't know, man. I'd be rich. I don't know what I'd want to do. All right, don't know, maybe I would do the same thing what they're doing now. I think I would be into the merger actually. I mean, if I was inheriting 32 billion in debt, I think I'd want to do the same thing. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm saying it's financially it might be the best thing to do. Which is why, even though I don't agree with the merger, I still say that maybe financially it's the best thing for Sprint to go ahead and go this route. Yeah, it's true, Steve. Banned. Yeah, definitely. Um, Plus, you got to keep in mind, like, from carrier to carrier, different devices using different bands. Not every device has all of the same LTE band compatibility. So even if they have certain agreements in place for LTE roaming, the devices may not be able to be compatible with it, especially when somebody gets an unlocked device and who knows what LTE radio bands it has, and then they activate it on a carrier and then they roam on a different carrier and it doesn't work anyways. It's a can of worms. I wish all carriers operated on the same bands, but that's wishful thinking for sure. But they do share some, like, band 2, band 4, like those are, pretty much, man, I can't, I think all the carriers have those bands. Berkey says, wish we had the competition in the wireless market in Canada that you guys have. That sucks about Canada. And actually, everybody, that's one of the arguments that people talk about the merger. They go against the merger saying it's going to decrease competition because of the limited number of carriers they have. Well, we have 4 here in the U.S., soon to be 3, which is just like Canada. And people don't have the options there. So Canadian carriers pretty much charge whatever they want. And they've got the people by the cojones. 81 degrees AMD in New York. That's not hot, man. Come on, really? That's hot? 81? 81, I'll take it. Connor's got 4 lines, $100 Metro PCS. It's a good deal. That's an awesome deal. I mean, how many people out there are paying $100 for 1 line? I know several people that after taxes and fees and their plan, they're paying, upwards of $100 for 1 line on one of the premium carriers. AMD, of course, we can root for the underdog. Of course we can. Sprint's a critical component of the market. I can actually remember a time when Sprint was #1. They were the best carrier in the US, and it wasn't even close. Sprint had the coverage, Sprint had the features, Sprint had all the best calling options, they had the best international plans, they had the best national domestic plans. Yeah, I remember all that. So yeah, I still have that nostalgic those memories of remembering all the commercials and how strong Sprint was, and anytime you ask somebody who their carrier was, it was like, yeah, I'm with Sprint, they're the best. That was many, many years ago. Connor says Sprint has a strong 3G network. They do. But in 2018, what is 3G going to do for you on your smartphone? Steve, the Google phones, all the way back to the Nexus 6 by Motorola, and then you had the Nexus 6P from Huawei, then you had the LG Nexus 5X, then you had the first generation Google Pixels, and then the second generation Google Pixels. They have every freaking LTE band. They are compatible with everything. In fact, a lot of them are fully compatible with international bands. I'm almost positive, I'm like 99% sure that you could take a Google phone to like China and get full compatibility. So yeah, they're the best. I often tell people that's one of the perks of buying an actual Google phone is, and especially if you have Project Fi, is the international roaming and usage and compatibility. It's awesome. Yeah, AMD, that's true. When Sprint first acquired Nextel, that was actually, I think, a smart move. Man, I don't know. You know, hindsight's 2020. The Nextel deal, uh, but for whatever reason, that whole walkie-talkie thing just didn't do anything for Sprint. I don't know. They just didn't care to continue with it. But I mean, the spectrum they got out of the deal was good, and the customers that they got out of the deal, if they were able to retain them, that was good. Nextel's that's been gone. Their national coverage was awesome when it came to their walkie-talkies. So if you were trying to connect with somebody by the push to talk, nationally it was great. Calling nationally was not good. But if you were like going intercarrier, it was awesome. Steve, you got an email today from Fi saying that they turned on overseas access by default. Yeah, it used to be that you had to like change some settings for international roaming. I remember when my parents were going overseas for a trip and they took two Google phones. They took a Nexus 6 and they took a Nexus 5X and they I got them a couple of Project Fi SIM cards and yeah, I think I had to activate like international roaming on it. But after but I think that was pretty much it. It was like basically just turning on a switch and toggling it on or whatever. Gary, welcome, my friend. I was wondering where you were. Didn't hear from you yet. 47 minutes in. It took you long enough, buddy. I'm just kidding. Nintendo, you back? Nintendo, I forget what city are you from? Are you from a city in Ohio? I feel like you're from Akron or something like that, or Strongsville or Brunswick. I forget. Yeah, Akron. I remember. Yep. What service providers are really doing well in Akron? I'm just curious because I'm about 45 minutes from Akron. Connor, the problem with the Sprint and Nextel deal, I think what Sprint did was they wanted the customers, they wanted the spectrum, but they didn't want the hardware, like like macro sites and stuff like that. Didn't matter to them. They used it for a while and then they decommissioned a lot of it, I believe. But no, it wouldn't have helped them because a lot of it was redundant. They were near or at the same site as Sprint sites, so it didn't really help them in any way. There weren't really any places where Nextel would work wireless, like regular network, that Sprint didn't already have their coverage. All right, so Gary is asking what is narrowband. So broadband and narrowband are the two different types of technologies that relate to that topic. So broadband, like you guys know, broadband is what we use for, home internet, broadcasting signals and frequencies through a broadband. So what I recommend, Gary, is if you ever, maybe you should just go ahead and do it. Download a Wi-Fi analyzer, and then you can see all the Wi-Fi networks that are within the range of that device. What you'll see is you'll see certain like connections, Wi-Fi connections, that have a broad band of coverage over the channels, so it'll look like a really long wave. And then narrowband, you'll see like a really high peak short wave, so the distance is short. It's a really tight channel. That's really the best way I can explain it. Now, a more reliable connection would occur through narrowband, but broadband is what we currently use as our most common connection type wireless connections. Uh, Narrowband is really much more reliable. You don't get the interference. Broadband has a lot of interference, and you'll see that's why a lot of Wi-Fi connections frequently connect and disconnect. It's kind of sucks. Narrowband is much better. T-Mobile and Verizon are good, but Verizon speeds are slow where I'm at. So that pretty much tells me that there are too many people on the Verizon network in your region, which sucks. And I struggle with that at times in the Cleveland area. But I've been seeing a lot of network upgrades, and over the course of the last year, Verizon has really recovered. They had a ton of congestion, but they've definitely improved. T-Mobile kicks butt over here too. It's very, very fast. At least when you have the coverage, it's really, really fast. Nothing from C Spire, Steve. It's all's been quiet there. I've been looking. It's occasionally you'll see something from C Spire on like Fierce Wireless. That's a really good website for you guys to check out. For those of you that follow my channel closely and you see where some of my articles come from, I usually check Fierce Wireless at least 3 times a week to see what's going on in terms of hardware, networks, stuff like that. FierceWireless.com. They're not paying me, but they're a great resource for information on networks and wireless technology. Sprint was number one. You know what? So during the 1990s, during the 2000s, Sprint and AT&T were probably the best overall networks. Obviously, Verizon's always been a big player, but Verizon really did a huge number with LTE. So they've really done a huge takeover of LTE over the last 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, they've always been a good company, but yeah, Peter just chimed in. Sprint was awesome in 1998. They were awesome even before that too. They ruled 80s, 90s, 2000s. T-Mobile should merge with Verizon. They're so anti-Verizon. How would that work? Actually, I don't think Verizon wants any parts of T-Mobile. It just doesn't seem like that's even in the realm of possibilities. Peter says, I get 40 megs on T-Mobile, but the Pixel doesn't get the higher bands. I've noticed something about the Google Pixel phones. They work best on Verizon. They work horrible on AT&T. I mean, they work fine on T-Mobile, but you're not going to get the bandwidth. If you guys want a highly performing device and you have the T-Mobile network, it's got to be the Galaxy S device. It's got to be the Notes. It's got to be the S9, S9 Plus. They run so fast. Yes, S9 Plus. They run so fast on T-Mobile. I feel like those devices were built specifically for a network like T-Mobile. They work great on there. You know what it is about the Pixel 2, Peter? I think the second generation Pixels have a different carrier aggregation capability. So I'm almost positive the second generation Pixels I think they have 3 carrier on the 3 carrier aggregation. At least 2 carriers, maybe 3. It's been a while since I checked into that though, but yeah, they are super fast. Nice, Edward. I do remember those commercials. Remember those days. Mark, Sprint has fallen so far. They literally went from top of the food chain to like bottom feeders when it comes to subscriber numbers, when it comes to network performance. I almost feel like Sprint, it's kind of like Carmelo Anthony's career. He went from like a scoring champion to like just a marginal 6-man. It kind of sucks. Yeah, I miss those days. I like to see more balance with the carriers. So like here's the big carriers and then here's the small ones. I want it like closer to this. Like I want to see the competition ramp up. AMD, you bring up a good point. The people that own shares and stocks in these companies, they're the most important component of the business. I mean, they're the ones investing and they want to be happy and they want to be rich. So a lot of decisions that the carriers make are built with their interests at mind. So they have a lot of control in the business decisions as to what goes on with CEOs and what they do and planning and stuff like that. AMD says, wasn't Verizon still at the top back in the day? Depends how far back you're going, because actually Verizon wasn't even operating as Verizon. They had a different business name. And also in some places, Verizon acquired a lot of regional carriers. Like in my area, it was Alltel. That's how I ended up with Verizon. I was an Alltel legacy customer that was grandfathered in with my plan and taken over to Verizon. New York Bell. So don't have good memories of that. You know, Peter, you brought up CDMA. I can't wait for the day that CDMA is something of the past and nobody even talks about it. It's just everything's through LTE now. You know, Verizon's not using CDMA hardly anymore. Pretty much everything they're doing now is through LTE. All the GSM carriers are doing everything through LTE. You know, it's like 99% of network traffic goes through LTE. So having CDMA compatible phone requirements and stuff like that, it's all going to be a thing of the past. You know, if we're still having these conversations in 2019, next year, 2020, it's just ridiculous. Peter brought up night and weekend minutes. I remember those, man. I remember buying like prepaid cards that you would load onto your phone manually. Like you would call, put in a number, and it was like unique to your calling card, and it would give you like 80 minutes. And then on Friday nights, like at 9 p.m., that 80 minutes would turn to 160 minutes. It would double. So you would have like 160, talk minutes, and you would use them Sunday, or by Sunday, and then it would like jump down to like 5 minutes on Monday if you didn't use them. So like, I remember I had one of those Qualcomm phones with the long antennas. You'd bite it out, stick it up so you can get reception. You'd have to walk outside. Hardly any coverage inside of homes. Yeah, it's it's so funny to think about those times. Ah, the throwback hour, the return of the throwback hour. Peter says Singular was the only company pre 2002 that would keep the nights and weekends straight. Yeah, actually, I had Singular for quite a bit of time. Uh, Probably like late 90s, I think I had Singular, like 98, 99. I was pretty happy with them, and they were really the only company that worked where I lived. I just couldn't make calls with any other company. I tried a bunch of stuff. Even Sprint struggled. So yeah, I used to roll with Singular. And actually, do you know why Singular performed so well in a lot of markets? Was because of the Sony Ericsson phones. They were huge. They were just awesome performing hardware when it came to calling and connectivity. Kind of like how the Motorola phones were so awesome with radios and signal strength. So I definitely remember those. You know, they worked excellent. So Peter says I'm a throwback. So what do you mean by that? What are we talking here? Referencing throwback. All right, my drink's getting warm. I need more ice. BRB. All right, what I miss? Actually, before Singular, it was Comcast Cellular. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, but Singular was a much better performing company, I feel, than what I remember of Comcast. I remember Singular was well known as a very high performing carrier. I mean, you would see their ads everywhere. You'd pop into a cell phone store. That was what they focused on. Uh, Even multi-carrier stores. Peter remembers the 90s like it was nothing. The 90s, at the time, everybody talked about how great the 80s were. Turns out that the 90s were like one of the best decades ever. Or maybe it's just because I was a kid in the 90s. All right, so in the 90s, early 90s, I was just a young little kid. But like my teenage years went to like the late 90s, so I remember them very well also. Yeah, the nights and weekend night and weekend minutes were like a little bit of a fad. They didn't last too long. All right, Steve, thanks for stopping in, man. Take care, brother. Uh, I was kind of glad then when they were gone too. But at the time, it was like a big perk. Like people were into that. They're like, oh yeah, I do all my talking on the weekends. I don't really need to talk much during the week. So it fit a lot of the needs that people had. So and then people got used to it. They're like, oh, I'll just chat with my loved ones on the weekends when I have more minutes and I got a call and stuff like that. In 2000, Peter was 12. In 2000, man, I was 16. So I'm a little bit older than you, Pete. You know what's crazy, Peter? Like, so you say nights and weekends were cheaper as a way of fighting congestion? Like, what type of congestion did they really have when people weren't even consuming megabits and, gigs of data? Like we're talking about we're talking call. Like how much information actually needed to be sent through airwaves through calling. We're talking like 1G connectivity. Oh God, Nintendo. You were 6 in 2000. Oh God. Not what I wanted to hear. Make a brother feel old. I knew I was starting to get old when my students started to be like born in the 2000s. So like I remember it was like probably like my third or fourth year teaching, and I'm going through like my grade book and I could see like student information and their birth dates, and it's like born in 99. I'm like, "Oh no." Cuz everything before that it was like born in 94, born in 95, and then it was like born in 99. I'm like, "Holy crap." And now it's like born in 2000, 2001. Ah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right, Pete. Yep. Start to feel old officially. Quick shout out to the Patreon page. For those of you that haven't checked it out yet, I highly recommend doing it. I've got some great content on there. Go ahead and visit Sneed Mobile Tech on Patreon. Just go to the Patreon and search Sneed Mobile Tech. I'll pop up. Or if you check any of my recent videos, in the description you'll see links for the Patreon page. The Patreon page actually has some free content you could check out. Uh, Membership to the Patreon, the financial support part is only $3 per month. It gets you early access, to all the videos I put to YouTube, but it also gets you some unique content and exclusive content that doesn't find its way onto YouTube. So I make them specifically for Patreon. And at $3 a month, I mean, hey, you could find a worse way to spend $3, right? A coffee from Starbucks is $3. A pack of cigarettes is $8 or $10, whatever it is now. This is just $3. Gets you covered for the entire month. All early exclusives included. So definitely check it out. It's a really good way to support creators. I'm really liking Patreon, and yeah, just go ahead and check it out. There's some free stuff on there, and then there's the ones you need to support for. So take a look for me, guys. Let me know what you think. Also, yeah, any of the newer videos have links to the Patreon page. You could just search Sneed Mobile Tech on Patreon, and it'll pop up. Nintendo, when I was teaching in Cleveland, I taught at a few schools actually. I taught at Lincoln West, which is pretty close to downtown. It's right off of West 25th. I also taught at John Hay, which is on the east side of Cleveland. I'd say it's about, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes east of downtown. I taught there, and I taught at a charter school in Cleveland as well, really close to the Plain Dealer building downtown. So those were the places I taught in Cleveland. C-Town in the house. I always wear my Cleveland gear. Uh, Cavs, Indians, Browns. Yeah, I know. You recently moved from Cleveland to Akron within the last couple of years, I believe. You got to keep in mind, like, Nintendo 504, he was one of my original subscribers. I remember, comments and stuff like that from Nintendo from, like, man, probably a year and a half ago, when the channel was kind of in its infant stages. Actually, I still have some of my original subscribers that I still hear from, time to time. Nintendo, I remember you. Steve, who just popped out, he's kind of been with me for a while. Uh, yeah, it's nice to see the loyalty. You guys know I appreciate it. You guys are definitely the best part of the channel. I love interacting with you guys, comment sections, videos like this. It's very, very enjoyable. And it's good to see that like people share the same passion for certain things that I do. It's that same commonality that allows people to relate to each other and kind of gives us this forum to discuss. Edward, you are an Altel rep, man. I loved Altel, man. I think we may have talked about this before. Altel was a great carrier. They were so consumer friendly, and anything I wanted, man, they did it. You know, they were awesome. You know what, Peter? I've heard a couple of people say to me that some of the like tech news YouTube channels here, uh, they simply just report and they don't offer much for opinion, and they don't really have much life to them. But you got to keep in mind, like when people make YouTube videos, their personality sometimes doesn't get to show when they make really short and brief videos. What I try to do is I try to present the material, report the news, then give my interpretation of it, and try to provide a little bit of my personality within it. And actually, that's why I decided, uh, why yeah, it's pretty much the reason why I wanted to do the podcast, and it's pretty much the reason why I wanted to do the live stream. There's only so much you can cover in a 3-minute video, and there's only so much of yourself that can be in that 3-minute video. So I try to do something different. You know what, Connor? Those channels are actually pretty good. Uh, I know one of them. I don't know the other. Uh, but yeah, like it's hard to change a person's personality. If they're very monotone, or if they're not as lively or animated. That's kind of who they are, and it's hard for somebody to change that or be different than who they are. You know what? To be honest with you guys, I try so hard not to bash carriers. The only time I get mad at a carrier or try to put them down is when they screw the consumer, like hidden administration fees, increasing administration fees, changing rate plans unnecessarily, taking away features, charging things, without warrant. Like that stuff aggravates me and makes me mad. So I dogged Verizon when they changed their unlimited plan. I dog T-Mobile when they do something wrong. I dog AT&T when they steal money from people. I dog Sprint when their network is lagging. I try to dog them all equally, and I try to always say when they're doing something right and they're doing something good. I try to be as level as I can. There's just no reason to do it any other way. I have to call it like it is. The one thing I wanted to ask you guys, especially for those of you that have kind of joined the channel recently within the last couple of months or so, how do you guys discover your channels on YouTube? Is it just like what pops up in your recommended, or do you actively go searching, for certain things, or do you just click on the recommended videos that pop up in the generated list? Autoplay, yeah, that makes it easier. Autoplay. The problem with autoplay is YouTube's just kind of like predicting what you might like, which is all machine generated. So, you know what, Nintendo 504? T-Mobile makes a lot of noise. So, yeah, they're a very typical topic on my channel. Dang, Peter, you put me in the junk? Oh, man. Low blows, man. Thanks, buddy. One thing I wanted to ask for those of you out there that saw the T-Mobile international pricing changes, is there anybody out there that the price changes affects? Like, say, for example, you yourself travel quite a bit and you rely on international calling. Are you upset about the price increase because they changed it from 20 cents per minute for call to 25 cents per minute? Now, I think in and of itself, a 5 cent increase doesn't matter much, but for somebody who may use 1,000 minutes, that would obviously matter very much. So, I don't know if anybody that affects them directly or not. Um, or the $5 per day pass to get you the high speed internet, the high speed data. I'm not sure who it affects, but let me know if that affects you at all. Connor asks, is Sprint good in Ohio or bad? Uh, Certain cities are good. I have to say that in the Cleveland area, Sprint is very spotty. If you're downtown, it's not bad. You'll get full LTE, no issues there. There are times where it's congested and it might slow a bit, but it's pretty reliable downtown. When you get outside of Cleveland and you get into like the suburbs, it's very, very hit or miss. Like Lakewood is fine, North Olmsted is fine. Some of the western suburbs I know for a fact are pretty good. But as soon as you get into like the smaller suburbs like Bay Village, Rocky River, Westlake, Sprint is, um, has a lot of 3G. It just drops out of LTE, puts you into 3G, and trying to load videos and trying to load Instagram and Snapchat on 3G, it's tough. It's really, really tough. Now, in terms of the rest of Ohio, I'm not sure. I hear Sprint's pretty good in Columbus. I hear Sprint's pretty good in Cincinnati. So some of the big cities seem to be fine. Nintendo 504 says his friend didn't last 15 minutes with Sprint. My brother-in-law upgraded to well, okay, so my brother-in-law was with T-Mobile for a long time, and there was like some kind of a lease deal with the newest iPhone. I think it was like the iPhone 7 or something. So he wanted to get out of a 6S and go into a 7. And one of the perks that Sprint was doing was they were buying out your old contract. They'd put you into a new phone that was upgraded. So he went that way. And he said that was the biggest mistake he made. And we're talking Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so a very well-developed city. He said his coverage was horrible. It was always in 3G. He took it back the same day and said no thank you. And he went right back to T-Mobile. Welcome, Fernando. I think you just popped in here. So my brother-in-law used to live in San Diego, and yeah, he told me the same thing. He said that T-Mobile's coverage in San Diego was good. He said it was really fast. Or did he have AT&T? I'm not really sure. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Edward Alex says Mentor, Ohio is the spot I've seen the fastest speed for T-Mobile. Edward, I've seen in the Cleveland area, I've seen T-Mobile hit over 100 megs per second. So, and it was not in Mentor, but Mentor's probably about 40 miles east of Cleveland. 35, 40 miles east of Cleveland. But that's pretty good for a suburb. I definitely agree. That's pretty fast. Connor says you would rather have 3G or 1 bar of LTE to no service. I don't know, man. In 2018, if you're in 3G, it feels like no service. But I guess you got a point. 3G is better than nothing. Uh, but it's been a while since I've seen it. I can't remember the last time I saw 3G on my device, and I've been with Verizon for a while. See, Nintendo, I've seen that too. Like, I've seen 120. I think I've seen almost 140 megs with T-Mobile in the Cleveland area. Yeah, I agree, Pete. 3G, I mean, you could do emails with 3G, no problem. If it's got a bunch of images and links and stuff and things that have to open up, then it's going to be difficult. 2G in the house? Man, what are you going to do with 2G? I mean, yeah, calls work on 2G. That's about it. Yeah, Connor, that sucks. 1 bar to no service on T-Mobile Metro. And we're talking, what, 1 bar of LTE? All right, so I don't know if everybody has seen the video. I uploaded it either late last week or early this week. Sprint made some plan changes. They basically went from one all-inclusive unlimited plan to two distinguishing plans. So they took the one plan, made it, so one plan was a basic unlimited, and the second plan they made it like a more premium plus unlimited. For anybody that saw those options, have you gone ahead and picked one of those two, or were you able to retain an old plan? I don't know if you guys saw that. Let me know in the chat if any of that kind of if you noticed it or if you decided to change anything with it. Oh, and other news from Sprint. Sprint's going heavy with the Magic boxes. So there's a couple problems that Sprint is facing right now. Sprint doesn't have the money to go ahead and upgrade the network with lots of macro sites, like actually putting up huge towers and stuff like that. So what they're doing is, in order to help with the congestion, to help with capacity, they're installing tons. I mean, like hundreds and thousands of Magic boxes all over cities across the U.S. So like take Pittsburgh for example, they're installing I think like several hundreds of Magic boxes throughout different buildings in the city in order to help with some of the slowing down of the network and the congestion. So, if you're in a big city that's been slow with Sprint, expect upgrades in the area of Magic boxes. Look in the windows, look for these machines. You'll see them. They basically look like access points, like router kind of things to help boost the speeds. Edward, you're right. AT&T's got some stupid bucket deals. I really don't understand why people are still hanging on to the buckets, and I think it's because it helps them save like $10 a month. But there's something to be said about not really worrying about data, especially when you're using your data plan as it should be used, which is as you please. You know, um, but like for somebody who maybe only has 2 or 3 lines and they share 25 gigs of data between them, maybe it's nice to save the 10 or 20 bucks. But at this point, I mean everybody's pretty much rolling with unlimited anyway. They're trying to get the most money out of you, so they push it. You go into a store, if you have an old grandfathered plan, they try to get you out of it and into an unlimited plan. Peter has a T-Mobile Magic Box. Too bad I get full LTE from What do they call the T-Mobile signal booster thing? I forget what they call it. I think there was a model that came out a couple years ago, and there was one that came out very recently. Like within the last year, there was a new device that they sent out to people. Yeah, the range extender. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. The range extender. So that thing actually works. Is it effective? And by the way, like, does that have to be connected to a Wi-Fi connection? It's hiding in your garage. Is that where it needs to be? Is that the best spot for it? So basically, Peter, what you're saying is that box eliminates the need to have the Wi-Fi calling feature. It's not used and I can't recycle it. All right, Edward, that is a great comment/question. Edward says when 5G comes out and we see gigabit speeds, what's that going to mean for these 22 data caps if we spend 1 gig per second? Well, that's the thing. If you have gigabit speed, you're not going to have those caps. And actually, even if you did have those caps, deprioritization wouldn't occur. You'd have the capacity, you'd have the network strength. When would you be deprioritized? The network's always fast. Nintendo 504 says Samsungs are way better for T-Mobile. If anybody's going to go to T-Mobile, I would always recommend a Samsung Galaxy device, whether it's a Note device or a, the S8, S9. Those are the best way to go. Yeah, exactly, Peter. That's pretty much what it is. See, that's the thing, Peter. Like, if you have a legacy device, an older phone that doesn't have Wi-Fi calling, or the Wi-Fi calling isn't compatible from your unlocked phone to the carrier or whatever. Yeah, yeah, I get that. The only issue is like, holding on to an old legacy device. I mean, eventually you're going to upgrade, right? So getting the new features with the upgraded device makes a lot of sense. All right, guys, we are an hour and 20 minutes into the live stream, and we're still cooking. You know what, Peter? From what I could tell from my usage, I feel like Samsung's operating system, like their version of Android, has become much better. I'd say the older Galaxy Notes and even the older like Galaxy S phones and stuff like that. Uh, I feel like their bloatware, all that stuff used to bog them down really, really bad. But now with like how many gigs of RAM these phones are coming with, like four gigs of RAM, 6 gigs of RAM. Some Androids have 8 gigs of RAM now, which is crazy. Um, it's less of an issue. Uh, with Samsung, you're getting fast, capable devices, computing, processing power. The displays are awesome. The expandable storage is there. The design's great. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to get a Samsung Galaxy phone. You know what, Pete? That's a good point, man. The bloatware is aggravating. But you know what you could do is from the last time I checked, you could buy a bloat-free variant from Samsung Direct. You can finance the phone through them and put it on installments, so it's more affordable and easy to manage. The only problem is sometimes the carriers provide more attractive trade-in deals to help you save some money. I mean, it does lock you in for 2 years because everything they give you back is over installments and bill credits. But yeah, those are kind of your options, I guess. Fernando says, I'm waiting for the Galaxy S10. It's going to be an awesome phone. The S10 is going to be loaded with features. It's going to be their 10th anniversary Galaxy. So if you guys thought the iPhone 10 was a big deal, I think the Galaxy S10 is going to, create a new precedent when it comes to innovation. Everything's been really, pretty much a standstill when it comes to smartphone hardware. I think the Galaxy S10 is going to change that quite a bit. It's going to have a lot of new features, and I think people are going to dig the design. It's going to be nice. Let me catch up here in the chat, guys. Connor says, was Metro PCS better when they built out and ran their own network? No, probably not. I mean, I think they're better with T-Mobile for the customer, I think. Edward says, what if all the Sprint Magic boxes are actually Huawei killer robots and that's the real magic? Oh, man, good. There it is. I like it. Nice. Pete says, I may do that next time. I just buy it outright. Yeah, a lot of people, if you can afford it, go ahead and pay for the device up front. But I'm telling you right now, the Galaxy S10, I know there's going to be 3 variants of it. So there'll be like an S10 and an S10 Plus. And I think there's going to be like a special pro model, or something like. There's going to be 3 variants of it. That one's probably going to push $1,000. It's going to be like Note level hardware. So, Mark, have a good one, buddy. Thanks for stopping in. Appreciate you participating and partaking in the chat. You know what, Nintendo 504, it's definitely going to be worth the wait. The S10 is going to be a great phone. A lot of people made a big deal about the Apple iPhone 10. I will say this, the iPhone 10 was the best iPhone that Apple ever made. But that's not saying much because I was never impressed by the iPhones that Apple made. I always felt like iPhone's hardware was good but not great. They had issues with the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, bending and all that other stuff. But like, throw all that out the window. Just looking at the design, I've never been impressed by what Apple did for their iPhones. They've always been good, but they've never stood out to me as some amazing hardware. There have been times where I've looked at the Samsung Galaxy phones, like the Notes and stuff, and I said, "Wow, that's a really, really great phone." Uh, so I think the S10 is actually I think it's going to supersede what Apple did to the iPhone 10. I think it's going to be way better. It's going to be a much more special phone, as they say. But I will say this: the iPhone 10, it went OLED instead of LCD. It went large instead of small. It got wireless charge. It introduced a lot of new design language and stuff like that. So I'll give Apple that. They used it to usher in and transition the new design language for the iPhone. It's just crazy to think that the iPhone 6, iPhone 7, and iPhone 8 all look the same. Like all the way through. And it took the 10th generation iPhone to get a redesign after 4 years. Nintendo 504 says most Apple parts come from Samsung. Their best displays come from Samsung. For sure. Yeah. They do business. They're good business partners. Oh, S10 versus Pixel 4. Uh, you know the I always think that the Samsung Galaxy phones are better than the Pixel phones when it comes to hardware. But when it comes to software, I don't know if there's anything better than a Google Pixel device. I mean, they're awesome. I think the Android variation that the Google Pixels have, I think they run almost flawless. They've got, they get the most secure updates and software updates and stuff like that. So there's a certain market for the Android, pure Android that the Google Pixel phones have, and I'm one of those people. Like I love my Pixel phones. I've had both generations of it. I had the old OG Pixel, the smaller one, and I have the 2XL. All right, Edward, you want to make a bet? Your bet is, since you trash talk on Apple, the next iPhone will have two more. Nice. I will take that bet. I don't think that the next generation Apple devices, the iPhones, I don't think they're going to have Band 71 compatibility with T-Mobile. I don't think so. They just, they won't. Next generation after this one might, but this one won't. So I'll take that bet. So Pete says, I go for hardware software integration. Yeah. Um, I think when it comes to features, these are probably the most important things. Like your experience with a smartphone is probably more important than like, just hardware specs and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of what Google has been enforcing with their version of the Pixels and stuff like that. The Pixel designs, I mean, they're as boring and industrial as it gets. You don't buy a Pixel phone because it's pretty. If you want a pretty phone, you buy a Galaxy, whether it's a Note or like an S9 or something like that. Uh, so yeah, if the phone works great, if it gives you the features that you want, sometimes the design takes a back seat and it's not really a priority. Pete, I've heard that before. Flashing, different firmware and software onto devices and not being able to use banking applications and stuff like that. I hear that's pretty common, actually. I didn't know you were a modder. Uh, that's pretty cool to know. Routing and changing all that stuff is pretty nice. I've never gotten into it myself, although it did pique my interest a few years ago when I was running a lot of Nexus phones and stuff like that. Connor says Motorola G6 versus iPhone 8. Man, those are two very different phones. I mean, obviously, one's an Android, one's an iPhone, but like the Motorola G6 is a budget-minded phone. I mean, brand new, you're spending 250 bucks on that phone. An iPhone 8 brand new is like about 700 bucks, right? 800 if you're getting upgraded storage. So I don't know. I guess if you want to save the money, go with the Motorola. You're still going to get a good experience with it. But the iPhone, I mean, that's for people who are in on the ecosystem. They've invested heavily into MacBooks and iMacs and iMessage and FaceTime and all that stuff. All right, we are an hour and a half into the live stream. Seems to be going pretty strong. I got 12 people in the house. Um, Continue, guys. Whatever you want to talk about, just throw it into the live chat. I'm reading, I'm responding. Hopefully, I've got some answers for you. We'll keep this going for a little bit longer. All right, cool, Pete. I don't know. My live timer's got 1 hour 31 minutes. How's the audio? I'm using my Bluetooth headphones today. Hope the audio is good through the mic, the built-in mic. All right, cool. Good to know. Yeah, Connor, you just brought up a great point. I'm probably somewhere around 970 subscribers, so I'm probably around 30 subs needed to get to 1,000. My goal for this year, well, I guess I should backtrack. So when I started this channel, was like, I don't know, probably about 22 or 23. No, it wasn't that long. It's been like a year and a half. So year one, I had 500 subs, like on the dot, the first year. And I was pretty happy with that. I mean, 500 subs is 500 subs. And then I made a goal to get 600 subs in year number two. Well, I'll be at 600 subs added for this year, probably at some point September. So I'll have exceeded my expectations. So, I mean, everything that I'm getting at this point is just extra compared to my goal. So, I'll be at 1,000 subs hopefully within the next week. I'd love to see, a big milestone, 1,000 subs. It's been a pretty cool ride. I was like really frustrated early on. I wasn't getting all the ads, the subs that I wanted to get. But then like I'd have a good week where I'd add like 20 subs, 30 subs. And then one week I swear I added like 40 or 50 subs. There was a lot of hot news. My videos had some buzz, and I think like they were popping up in a lot of people's and they're recommended. So yeah, I'm getting close to 1,000. Maybe I'll do something special this week once I get to that marker. Yeah, Nintendo, you've been around for a while, man. When you probably started subscribing to my channel, I probably had like 30 or 50 subs. You're one of the first ones. You know what I think I want to do, guys? I think I want to get some merch. I think I'm going to do a t-shirt. Uh, I don't know what I want to do for the design. I don't know what I want to do for colors. But I think there's some merch coming up for Sneed Mobile Tech. Maybe I'll get that little avatar that I got for the YouTube channel. Uh, get a subscribe button or something like that. I don't know. But I think I'm going to get something out there. Find a shirt maker, get the design in. And yeah, and you know what I'll probably do? I'll probably offer them all to the subs. Whoever subscribed, just I'll put up a link to make the purchase order. I'll send them out free of shipping, whatever they cost. I'll just get them out there. What do you guys want for colors for the Sneed Mobile Tech t-shirt? Just some ideas. Gray. Yeah, that'd be cool, Nintendo, man. You could do pickup. We could ship. We could do pickup. Maybe gray with like red, gray and red, or gray and blue, or something like that. I'll get some blue in there for you, Nintendo, for sure. Yeah, I think gray and blue would work. For the logo, I think I'm gonna probably do that little avatar picture on the YouTube channel that I have. Have I ever discussed where that image comes from? Did I ever tell you guys where that is? Where that's from? It's like it looks like a drawing of me. I don't know if I've ever talked about this actually. So my avatar, my little image that you guys see on my channel, it's a small piece of paper, and it's like a half a sheet of notebook paper. One of my students who he was in my biology class. I guess he didn't do his homework, or he didn't do his assignment during class. Instead, he just drew me in kind of a comical way. So my students joke, and they kind of tease me, and they say I look like DJ Khaled. And I resent it. I don't like it because DJ Khaled obviously is kind of like an overweight dude, and I joke with them and call them racist because they think all Middle Eastern people look the same just because you grow a beard. So like he drew me pretty accurately. I mean, it looks like me for sure. And above it, he wrote "We the best," which is something that DJ Khaled says all the time. He screams it on his tracks. So that drawing that he did during class is of me, saying he's got the little thing on there, "We the best," and it's me. So I took a picture of it and I screenshot it or whatever, and I put it as my avatar for the YouTube channel. So I'm thinking if we do a logo, I just incorporate that avatar of me, and I don't know, just get the Steed Mobile Tech in there, do it in some fancy lettering or something, and get the colors in there. Dank Hank, actually, he's in the house, was one of my students. I don't think it was in your class particularly. I think it was an afternoon class. I think you guys were in a morning class. Edward, that's a great idea. That is a really, really good idea. A shirt with network antenna in the middle with signal broadcasting your channel. I think that's gonna work. I think that's good. We the best. Oh my God! They always tease me. They always say that I look like him. I hate that, because I don't really look like him. Like, just because I have a beard, I'm gonna look like that guy. It's ridiculous. Yeah, maybe I'll do a couple versions of the Sneed Mobile Tech t-shirts. Maybe I'll do like a limited edition one, and maybe I'll do like a standard one that's always available. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that's how I'll do it. Yep. Yep. Should be a good t-shirt. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe I'll get into that. You know what's really underrated? Headphone comfort. Like, that's really important. Like, these headphones aren't really that comfortable, especially, when you're going to have them on for 2 hours during a live stream. I mean, they're cool, but I never really thought about the comfort when I got headphones. Any topics from this week, guys, from the videos? We have the State of the Networks videos, pricing, profitability, performance. We had the T-Mobile International pricing changes, Sprint plan changes, the military discount, AT&T Time Warner acquisition. Department of Justice is actually appealing the AT&T Time Warner acquisition. So for those of you that aren't aware of that, haven't been following it, that's going to have to run through its paces. We're starting to get some Q2 news. So we're going to see postpaid, prepaid. We're going to see which companies perform the best in terms of net ads. A little bit of prepaid stuff is in there as well. AT&T's kind of like, they probably had the worst Q1 2018 of all the carriers. So it'll be interesting to see if they bounce back. I mean, they did hit a pretty low quarter. So, I mean, it's most likely that they improve a little bit at least. Some revenue numbers. So we're not going to hear anything from Sprint on that, but we're definitely going to see numbers from T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon within the next week, I think. Let's see here. Let me get back into the chat. So Pete was saying T-Mobile's international deals are still cheaper than most. You know what a lot of people don't think about when they travel internationally is if your phone is internationally unlocked and it has all of the radio bands, the LTE bands, you could actually just take your phone with you and buy a prepaid SIM while you're there. And it might be the cheapest way to go. So, like, if you're going to be somewhere, say, I don't know, say you go to Egypt, I don't know, Greece, and you're going to be there for 5 days, and you're paying $5 per day from T-Mobile, so $25, right? And you're only getting a half a gig of data. Like, you're better off just buying a prepaid carrier at 20, the equivalent of 20 US dollars and having unlimited basically, right? It's not definitely not going to be a half a gig of data. It's going to be several gigs of data. Um, Maybe it's unlimited. Who knows? So yeah, I think people forget that they can do that as long as their phone is compatible with those carriers there, and that's definitely something to consider when you're buying hardware. I think people just don't, consider that. Yeah, prepaid deals internationally are great. Of course, T-Mobile from Germany, right? Yeah, definitely. Deutsche Telekom. Yeah, Connor. T-Mobile has a huge network in Europe. That's their home region, so of course it'd be great. Dark Vader, welcome, my friend. I think just popping up here in the chat. I always keep an unlocked phone along with me with my daily driver. My daily driver is always an unlocked phone. That's the only way I can roll. Back when I used to, do the carrier exclusives, it was just easier to roll that way, not think about, device compatibility and unlocking and all this stuff. But like if you buy the right device, I mean, sky's the limit with the flexibility. Whether you travel with it, whether you want to change carriers, jump on promotions when they become available. Maybe you move and you need to get a new carrier because your old carrier sucks there. Having a compatible device with all networks is to your advantage. Peter, which Pixel do you have? OG Generation 1 or the Pixel 2? I had the OG Pixel. I had, what is it, with the Quite Silver, I think it was called? The silver variant. It was a good phone, man. The original Pixel devices, to this day, so we're talking July 20th, 2018, to this day has one of the most capable cameras of any device. I still put the OG Pixel as a better camera than the S9. And the S9 has a very, very good camera. I still think the OG Pixel has a better camera than the iPhone 10. Just my personal opinion. I'm sure there's others of you out there that disagree, but my original Pixel had a great camera. Connor says, any news on Dish Network Spectrum Holdings? Dish Network is standing pat. What they're doing, I think, Dish Network, is they want to build a small 5G network that is built solely for a very specific set of things, like the IoT, Internet of Things. I think what they're trying to do is just be able to connect certain hardwares to their 5G network. You guys got to keep in mind, 5G networks are not just for cell phones. In fact, cell phones are a small part of it. Fifth generation networks are for connected cars. Fifth generation networks are for medical equipment. It's the very, very low latency and the instant connectivity of 5G that's going to really set it apart from 4G LTE. You can make 4G LTE that pushes a gigabit per second. 5G is going to do that as well, but 5G, it's about the instant connectivity, no lag, right? You can have cars that are going to be autonomous and they don't have that instant connectivity and very high speed. That's what 5G is going to really be about. Let me catch up here in the chat. Pete says the 4K camera on its eyegasm worthy. I've never heard that before. Eyegasm. Yeah. I used to record in 4K all the time, and when you have a Pixel phone, your storage is unlimited. So It's nice to be able to record so freely in such a high resolution and not worry about storage. See, I don't think people think about that. Like when you buy a Pixel device, like a Google phone, your storage of all of your files, they're all set. You don't have any restrictions there. Edward says, if merger happens, where is all this money from Deutsche Telekom coming from? They don't have billions like what John Ledger says they will need to spend on 5G. All right, so when you, and this goes for T-Mobile, this goes for Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, whatever. When you build 5G networks, it's in phases and it's in steps. You hit certain markets first, and then you just build that way. So you start with your most congested areas, your highly developed cities that are going to be able to utilize the technology. It doesn't make sense to put 5G out in the middle of nowhere. So you do it in phases. So the billions that you need to set up these 5G networks, it's incremental. It's a it's millions here, millions there, and it just adds up over time. So getting the investment spread out over time is how they're going to do it. Dank Hank says, when did the OG Pixel come out? The OG Pixel is going to be 2 years old. 2 years old in October, so that would be October of 2016 or September of 2016. I remember when I got mine, actually. I didn't even get mine when it first released. I got mine, I don't know, around Black Friday of 2016. I don't know, Verizon had some kind of deal or something. I took advantage of that. So it's about to be 2 years old. But they're still getting software updates. They're still getting security patches. It's still a very, very good phone. In fact, you could probably get a good deal on either like a refurbished or recertified. I doubt there's any new ones still out there. Maybe there are. You could probably get it for less than $300. So you're getting, a pretty strong processor. It's a Snapdragon 821, I think. 4 gigs of RAM and stuff like that. It's a good phone. Let me catch up in the chat here, guys. Connor says, old owner of Boost Mobile wants to repeal the merger. John Ledger says he's acting like a communist. Yeah. So the original founder of Boost and the original CEO, he's been very vocal about the merger, and he's been anti-merger. The reason he's anti-merger is because he's concerned about the prepaid side. The reason he's concerned about the prepaid side is I think he wants to get back into the game. So I think I've had this conversation. I think it was with Mark Garcia, possibly. Not really sure. So he's trying to, what he's trying to do is he's trying to get concessions to be made about the merger. As is, he doesn't support the merger. But if the merger released a lot of the prepaid business, then he would be okay with the merger. So that's kind of where he's at with that. All right, so Pete, you got yours on launch day. Battery is still okay. My battery started to deplete after about a little bit over a year. I did a battery test on it. It took a couple rounds of testing. I had to do some calculations and some data tracking. My battery was down around like 90% capacity. So over the course of a year, I lost about 10% battery capacity. Yeah. So I think we're right around the same spot. And you know what the problem is? People don't realize this. When your phone gets hot while you're charging and discharging and you're taxing it and you're doing all these high-end processes and stuff like that, when batteries get hot, it's like the worst thing possible for a battery. Batteries expand, they start to degrade, the performance starts to deplete. I mean, we've seen this with iPhones, you'll see it with Androids. And then throw in the fact that our batteries are stuck and sealed and they're not removable, it makes them very difficult to manage. So you have to be very careful about the type of heat you subject your phone to. Yeah, I think the OG Pixel is definitely getting Android P. So you'll get the new operating system for sure. Edward says, if the merger happens, do you see T-Mobile becoming #1 carrier in 10 years? Probably not, but being the #1 carrier and being the #2 carrier and being the #3 carrier when there's 3 carriers, I mean, if they're all close, then what does it matter? Let's say Verizon has 150 million customers. Let's say AT&T has 145 million, and let's say the new T-Mobile has 139 million. They're all within 10, 15 million. What does it matter who's first, second, or third? To me, what would matter is who's the most customer friendly, and who's best for my usage. So to me, it wouldn't matter. But I mean, I could see them overtaking AT&T in the wireless side. I think Verizon's just really good when it comes to wireless. I think AT&T has been neglecting wireless. So I think if anything, the merged T-Mobile could possibly overtake AT&T. Verizon's just they understand where the bread and butter is, and they're just really good about their wireless side. They're always investing in it. They stay on top of it. Dank Hank is asking, what phone do I use now? I am rocking. I actually have two phones. The phone that I use as my daily for everything. It's got my SIM card on it, or SIM card in it. Is the Google Pixel 2 XL. So that's what I'm using. I also have a Moto Z Play 2, or Moto Z2 Play. I have that just as a secondary device. Great battery life. That's the reason for having that phone. I like both of them, but I use the Pixel on the daily. You know, Pete, the charging times for the Pixel phones are pretty good. USB-C delivery is pretty efficient. It's not like as fast as, say, the Motorola TurboCharge or the OnePlus Dash Charge or the is it the Voke Charge that Oppo has? Those are really, really fast. But the USB-C, it's a standard. You know, like it's nice to be able to charge your phone with pretty much any USB-C compatibility, and it charges pretty fast. So what I do is, you know, I charge my phones, you know, I try to keep them between like 35 and 85%. So as soon as it drops to like 40%, I'll give it 20 to 30 minutes and it's back up to like 79%. So to me, that's fine. I'll do that twice in a day. So, you know, and I'm satisfied with that. I'd like to see faster battery charging technology. I'd like to see new battery technology. I'd like to see better battery life on devices. I'd like to see Android become more efficient with battery. But all those things take time and investment and development and research and stuff like that. So hopefully we get some better battery technology within the next couple years. There's a couple things in the pipeline. So hopefully that, you know, that kind of comes sooner rather than later. Connor was talking about the original founder and CEO of Boost. Said he wants to make a division in Sprint for a smaller 5G network. That's kind of like his idea, is to create 5G access points. So it's not national coverage. It's like city to city basis kind of thing. It's actually a really, really good idea. I like it. And what he wants to do is he wants to support like minorities, and he wants to support to give people internet in very you know, areas that struggle with connectivity in homes that, you know, their cell phones or smartphones are their main mode of connectivity. You got to keep in mind, like, a large portion of the country don't have really fast broadband connectivity where they live. Or not a large portion, but the rural areas in the country don't have that support. So he's basically saying, you know, provide the support to these people, giving them a version of a 5G network. Maybe not the greatest network, but, you know, to provide something for them. Pete says Samsung is working on graphene batteries that can do that. Yeah, I'm dying for some new battery technology. It's really aggravating to see that, like, and I'm not trying to pick on iPhones. I'm just using them because everybody has them. Take like the iPhones. A 1-year-old iPhone's battery life could be anywhere between like 2 to 3 hours of screen on time. Like, people use their phones for a reason. Like, they want the screen to be, you know, have some brightness. They want to enjoy their devices. They want to run apps. They don't want to have to run it in low power mode and be worried about the battery meter. You know, why can't we have better battery technology? Why can't we have faster battery charging technologies? I just think it's ridiculous that we've been using smartphones, you know, for 10, 15 years, and we're still using pretty much the same battery technology. Yeah, we've been able to add capacity into a smaller form factor, you know, but that's not going to do it. We need something different. So Samsung with the graphene batteries, I did a video on it last year. Hopefully we see something within the next calendar year, come into play. I know the stuff has to be tested. It's got to be safe. Batteries explode and stuff like that. So, let me see here. I got to catch up in the chat. Dank Hank says, "What do you think of WoW as a cable provider?" WoW's pretty good, but uh, they're very, very regional. They're not offered in a lot of places. Uh, I think my parents have WoW at their home, and they're not that happy with it. I've heard some people in the Strongsville area that really love WoW, so mixed bag with WoW. 300 megabits per second? That's pretty impressive. What are they charging for that, Connor? You know what, Pete? There's a place by my dad's bakery, a battery place. A lot of people don't even know where the closest disposal station is for batteries and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, people just usually dump them and throw them away. It's horrible. There's some really reactive stuff there. Dank Hank says, my SE battery is failing. I think a battery replacement is free since it was recalled. I think it's $29. I don't even know if they're still offering it anymore at Apple. But the battery repair is actually not that expensive. They're pretty simple and straightforward on their devices. Is the SE almost 3 years old now? Or is it 2 years old? I forget when the SE came out. I try to follow Apple as close as I can, but I mean, I can only go as far back as possible. I feel like SE batteries failing makes sense. It's probably getting up there in age. Pete says Samsung and exploding batteries. Hey man, that was just the Note 7, all right? It was just that one. It was a ticking time bomb, actually. All right, Connor, so $68 gets you 300 megs. Sign me up, man. I'd be into that. What's the upload on that? $20 megs ain't bad on the upload. I mean, if you're not uploading, then it doesn't even matter. Yeah, so Dank Hank, a 2-year-old battery in a device. Just think about how many times you've charged and discharged, how many times the phone was really hot from gaming. It just, the battery life of phones, I mean, a couple years is pretty much it. 2 years. Now, the phone's going to continue to run good once you get the battery swapped out. You're talking to an iPhone repair specialist. I've done hundreds of batteries out of iPhones. Everything from the iPhone 5 to the iPhone 8. iPhones constantly need battery swaps. Pete says $50 for a gig. I forget who offers that deal. Is that Charter or Cox? Or that might be AT&T. All right, guys, we're approaching the 2-hour mark. We're going to be letting you all go soon, so get in whatever questions or comments you have within the next 90 seconds. So rapid fire, let's do it. Edward says, what is the most you would pay for Verizon Unlimited grandfather hotspot? Man, if I could have my hands on a grandfathered OG Verizon hotspot. Man, I would pay... No, not really, man. I'd pay like 70 or 80 a month. That's all I would do. 70 or 80, that's about it. Get the flexibility of being able to take it wherever you can go and also using it at home. That's it, $80. I see what people pay, man. It's like $200, $300 a month. That's ridiculous. Those people must really just have no options. I mean, I'm currently paying $30 for my AT&T, so I'm not getting the speeds that I would be getting with Verizon. I'm paying $30 a month for AT&T Unlimited Hotspot. Oh, Edward, I forgot what you recommended to me. The Nighthawk. Which variant of the Nighthawk would you recommend for an AT&T prepaid SIM unlimited hotspot? You're going to Boston, Dank Hank? You got Verizon? You're going to be straight, my friend. Verizon's network is very strong in Boston. Coverage is excellent. Your speeds will be good. They've got tons of capacity there. No worries. Just make sure you take your charger with you, man. Your battery's taking a dump on you. Connor says, is DSL still a viable option in 2018? Not really. I mean, if you're doing anything, that needs substantial bandwidth, probably not. I mean, I guess if you have low demands, it might work. I guess it depends on the speed specifically, like 5 megs per second. Maybe you're running like a TV app or something, it might work for you, maybe. But I think 10 megabits per second is a must. 20 is probably better. And if you're going to be connecting multiple devices, 50 megs to 100 megs is probably where you're at. That's true, Pete. The DSL is only the really way to go for some people, especially in rural areas that are really out there. Gotcha. Nighthawk second edition, band 14 logo on the back. All right, so band 14 is going to be where the speed's at. All right, cool. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. Before you guys leave, if you have the chance, go ahead and hit the Sneed Mobile Tech Patreon page. There you can actually get access to some public videos. Also, as you're there, just consider supporting the Patreon page. It's just $3 per month. It gets you early access to all the YouTube videos. It gets you all the exclusive content videos that you won't find anywhere else except Patreon. So definitely check that out. Make sure that if you're not subscribed and this is your first time visiting, subscribe to the YouTube channel here. Go ahead and ding the bell to get notifications whenever I upload new content. I want to thank you guys for a great live chat. Thank you for tuning into the live stream. I had a lot of fun. It was a great time. So thank you guys again. This is Sneed Mobile Tech. I think I'm going to sign off with that. And you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.